All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. And everybody on Zoom over there, I hope you can hear us a little bit. And really grateful to have everybody here this morning. And we've got a couple hours to spend together envisioning and breathing life into this vision of Polestar. And so very, very happy to spend this time with all of you. So we're going to start and close with a little music, as is our custom. And this is a wonderful song called A New Tomorrow. So, and we have been practicing for minutes on end. Well, to be honest, seconds on. But we're willing to give it a shot. So.
Some people actually know the words. That's so impressive.
So guys, go first.
Right?
We're ready.
When the dawn breaks and then the morning sends the sun high in the sky, who would hide from heaven's glory? Who would pass the challenge by? La 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 la. Create a better land, leave the past a new tomorrow, wait for all who understand. There's a morning for every nation, when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand.
We sort of do it.
Without rehearsing.
Okay.
Do we need to be in do you want us in a certain order?
This is good for now. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to put the speaker in front of the computer. So we'll just play musical chairs here, and I'm going to start. So I think we have an order, and we'll just move around a little bit. So welcome again, everyone. We got a handful of people here on Zoom, and great to see you all too. So, where are we starting? I'm drawing a big blank. I got this far. Let me get out my notes. Oh, okay, now I remember. I wanted to start with a story. So some of you have probably heard this story, but it bears repeating. Can everybody hear okay? Okay. Yes. Back there, Gangamata?
A little louder.
Okay, a little louder. How about you guys come a little closer? Yeah. That could be part of the solution, because we have chairs up here and we'd love to fill them up. Oh, good, we got more people coming in. And there is coffee and tea back there and snacks.
You want to anchor in case chairs are needed or anything.
So you may have heard this story, but it bears repeating. So a man died and he went to heaven. And he got there to the pearly gates, and St. Peter greeted him there at the gate to heaven. He said, "Oh, great, I can come into heaven." He said, "Sure." He said, "But, you know, I've always been curious what hell is like. Could you take me there first?" So St. Peter said, "Sure, I'll take you down there." And so they travel a ways. I think hell is down. and they go through this long, dark tunnel. And then it opens up into this huge room. And in this room is a whole bunch of people sitting at all these banquet tables. And all the banquet tables are full of the most incredible food and delicacies.
Susan catered.
Yeah, as if they were catered by Susan. Yeah, who also has some food back here today. And the guy's just wondering, how could this be hell? But then he looked closer. And he realized that each person who was trying to eat had their utensils for eating were longer than their arms. So they actually couldn't get the food into their mouths. And so that was hell. So he said, "Okay, take me to heaven." So they go up into heaven. They go through the long hallway and opens up into a big hall, and there's all these banquet tables, and there's food, the food you can't imagine, just terrific food. And he looks more closely, and they have the same size utensils. But then he looks more closely still and realizes they had learned to feed each other. And so that is heaven. So this is, of course, an incredible lesson for all of us right now. Yogananda describes misery is living for the self, and when he says that, small s self, that self that is small, that self that is limited, that self that is brittle, that self that is disconnected from something so much larger. And so this is really at the core of what we're trying to do at Polestar. And I think the situation we're in as a society and as a planet compels us to look differently at how we are living together. We now have to look at the whole, or we are up for a really rough ride. So it's really enlightened self-interest now, and I think it's more and more obvious. I think it's always true that if you live for more than just yourself, your small self, that you have greater joy, greater awareness, greater happiness, a fuller life. But I think it's especially important right now that we take care of each other, we try to love each other, and help each other, and look at our situation in a much wider context than we're used to looking at it with. So in Yogananda's early life, he started a school, and he called it How to Live Education. And I really love this theme because this is something that everyone can relate to. We're all here learning how to live. I mean, living as an art and a science, you could say too, but we're all in some process of learning how to live together. And so it is the most universal way I know to pick up personal growth or religion or philosophy or any of these things that can tend to separate people and can tend to cause division among people. So if we look at it more, we're all learning how to live together. I think it's a uniting concept. It's a concept most of us can relate to. And of course, it begins with each of us individually. We have this great entertaining show going on of the planet and each other and all this that's happening outside of us. But in reality, our primary relationship is with ourselves, capital S, with God or Spirit or whatever you choose to call it. That is our primary responsibility. But then we do have all this entertaining and amusing and torturing things that happen on this planet, and we have to live with that as well. But what we're trying to do at Polestar is create a culture that supports that individual relationship with life, with yourself, and how that is cultivated, that we each cultivate an inner life, because in truth, there is no other life than an inner life. You know, we don't really live in the external world. We live in our responses to it. We live in our relationship to it. And so this is a main tenet of yoga philosophy, is that we have to learn where we are really living, which is inside ourselves. And then from that center of knowledge, we have to meet each other and greet each other and help each other, serve each other. So those are some of the main foundational things that Polestar is founded on and bear all of us thinking about. Finally, I'm so glad we have a baby here. Look at that little baby. Oh my gosh. This is something beautiful we can do together, you know? We are passing through here so quickly. None of us know for how long. And really, we have the opportunity to generations. And when we look at our kids and our grandkids and realize this is how we can speak to them, this is how we can communicate with them, this is how we can touch their lives, by living in such a way that this pattern and energy of life carries forward in the culture that we create, and they get to live in that culture as well. So it's just all good things to remember. We're definitely all swimming against the tide of our culture, because it's really individualized, which is wonderful, but to a fault, you know. It's become selfish, it's become greedy. We are all trying to amass wealth for ourselves, but we really can't be wealthy without community, without relationships, without being of service to each other. That is a huge, and this has been studied and proven, huge factor in well-being. Is your life useful to others? Is it helpful to others? It's definitely enlightened self-interest for us to think in this way of how can we be of service to each other and to the world. And so thank you again for being here today. And this is hard work. You know, we're envisioning and we're affirming, and we have many forces arrayed against us that would keep us from accomplishing this. You know, most of them are within ourselves, honestly. But I'm so grateful, especially for all you guys and the professional energy you bring and the insight you're bringing. When we started this, we had to just hope we would find others of like mind who would resonate with this vision, and we are finding them all over the place. So we feel like we've got a good spot here in Fort Collins. We've got a great amount of potential to do something truly unique and truly helpful. So thank you all again. And then the format will be, I'm done, thankfully. That's all I have to say about that. And the format will be, we'll just go around this little panel circle here, and they'll sit here so the Zoomers can see them. And they each have a little different perspective on Polestar Village, and they'll offer their own insights and inspiration and information about what they've learned and what they're learning. And then we're going to save questions for the end, So, but there should be a good 45 minutes left, at least, for questions and answers. And the Zoomers, you can get on type in your questions, and Vina will represent those questions. And yeah, we'll just go all the way through, and then we'll open it up for discussion. And I think that's pretty much it. So our next person is going to be JT, also known as Panduranga, and he is the architect on the project. Oh, and we decided we're going to just introduce ourselves. So if you would, tell us a little bit about your background and your interests, and that would be very helpful. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As Michael said, my name is JT Panduranga Heater, which is a mouthful, and you might wonder why there's so much of it. I am the project architect on this project, and I got to this position through the grace of God, really. I've worked with Michael and Daiva. I assume you all know Michael and Daiva if you've been associated with Polestar at all. I've known them for over 30 years, and we've worked together in intentional communities and building for that length of time. So when Michael started this years ago, he lassoed me in to be part of the process, and it's been a real blessing. So it's been a path for me to get to this point, and I feel it's really been guided since early in my life. In high school, actually, I can vividly remember walking down the hallway in high school, my senior year, in 1968, before graduation, and thinking, I want to live in a spiritual or intentional community. I don't know what the word was back then, but I knew I wanted to live, back then it was communes, that was kind of the thing, but it was like, that makes so much sense. Everybody's working together, living together, and so that just, the consciousness was out there at that point, and that just clicked in my head at that point. And then I just kind of let it go because nothing appeared to me at that point. So I went to engineering school because my parents thought I could be an engineer since I was good in math and science. Didn't particularly enjoy that. They weren't my people, I'll just say that. Sorry for any engineers here. But
There's a bunch of them.
so from there I went to So then I went to college a little bit, and then I worked in a mental health facility as a psychiatric aide with children. And then I was a musician, so then I'm playing in a rock and roll band. We decided to go on the road. We traveled for a couple of years, and I did that professionally. And then it was like, yeah, this is fun, but it's time to kind of be a little more serious. So really my passion deep down inside had been architecture, but I was never able to express that. And so after traveling, I went to architecture school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went there and graduated from architecture school and graduate school, and energy engineering was kind of my focus at that point. But then at the same time, my spiritual life was going along. I read Autobiography of a Yogi when I was in architecture school, and I thought, well, this is my path. These are my people, but I never met any of my people. I couldn't find my people. And then I had a friend who was an architect in Dallas, and he asked me to come down and see what he was doing to maybe work for him. So I went down there, and he was showing me around and finally showed me a house he did, and I walked into a room that was the meditation room. And there was Yogananda and all the other gurus, and my spine just lit up. My hair stood on end, literally. So
You had
what
some.
I had hair then. I had hair then. So I went back to Milwaukee. I quit my job, and I moved to Dallas. And I said, okay, I'm here. I want to join Self-Realization Fellowship. And the woman said, well, we're with Ananda. And I go, what's Ananda? She said, well, SRF's kind of like monks and nuns. We're kind of like family. And I said, this is where Yogananda brought me. So I went there, and then I came to Ananda Village for the first time that summer. And I thought, well, this is it. This is where I want to live. This is the community that, I've been looking for. And so I had to go out and have all these experiences so I could bring my architectural knowledge, my musical knowledge to an Althouse village and put it to work for the world. And so with that, I've virtually been about the only architect in Ananda for 30 years. I've done work all over California, Seattle, Portland, Palo Alto, and India, just everywhere. And it's been amazing that I've been put in this position, and I felt like there's been a reason for that. And all my background is so I can put that out. So now I'm here with you to make this happen. Fort Collins, that's right. So it's just another step along the way. And so my goal has been to take the vision that Michael and all of you involved with Polestar are putting forward, which is similar to Ananda, but it's a little bit different flavor, but it's definitely the focus on growing the little self to the big self. In fact, Yogananda said, change yourself and you have done your part in changing the world. And so that's what this community is about. It's about supporting each individual to grow and to improve themselves, for themselves to grow. And in that way, we improve the world. So my job as an architect is to create environments that support the self and help the self grow. And with all these wonderful consultants who are helping us in all these different ways, I have the great job of helping to coordinate all that, and I get my fingers in all the pies. So I really like that. But I'm just going to talk just briefly a little bit about the site plan and why it evolved to the way it has turned out. First of all, just to say
Do you need us to hold it up? So
I'm just going to talk in general.
Okay.
I think it's good. But just to know, we have to deal with the city, we have to deal with codes, we have to deal with a lot of things. So there's things we might want to do that we have to be able to, follow the codes and to do what the city and the state will allow. So, this isn't exactly what we would do, but we were working within those confines. But what my job was to do was to create environments on every different level that would support personal growth. So if you look at the big picture, it's things like having the community garden where everybody can work together and have a focus for the gardening and outdoor work. But then you get to the smaller environments where we have each of the housing clusters, there's little housing clusters throughout the village, if you notice, and they all have their own green section. They all kind of have their own internal focus on a small area of green and for gardening or just outdoor work or working together. And then every house has their own place that is more private or semi-private, where they can actually have a connection with nature, be outside, but also have their own space. So if you look at the drawings and the elevations, you'll see, I think virtually every unit has some kind of outdoor space that's covered, that's part of the house, either a second floor deck, a balcony looking out, or a first floor area that connects to the outside. And so there's that connection with the neighbors, because the interactions we have with each other is what helps us grow. And then inside the house, we have our own private space where we have a real personal time, where we have time for growth. And so the spaces are designed to promote that. And to touch on another thing Michael mentioned, it's being at Ananda Village for 30 years, I've seen everything from babies to growth of the children. We have birth, life, and death all happening. Right now we have friends, a lot of friends are passing because they're getting older. We have babies growing up. And so we've seen all of that progress through the community. And the community is supportive on every level. The babies come into the world, there's a food train feeding the mom and dad and helping them along and giving them support. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the people who are older and start needing help. And again, they're supported psychologically, physically, and spiritually in their development to the point where they're ready to leave this planet. And so Polestar is actually supporting all those same things by the way we're designing the units. That's why we have so many units that are first floor, aging in place, no steps, completely accessible. We have a wellness center for people as they age later to be able to have a place to go and be cared for, or they can be cared for in their own home, or they can be children who are growing up, and we have playgrounds, we have outdoor spaces for everything. So we're really working to support the individual growth of everybody at every level. And it's been my joy to be part of that and to help you all realize that. And I'm doing everything I can to help make this all happen for all of you, and bless you all for being part of this. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And I will introduce Jyoti, who is my fellow architect who is working with me on developing these plans.
I'm going to have a cheat sheet with me just so that I don't go off tangent here. Hi, my name is Jyoti, and Michael had a beautiful title for what I was going to talk, but it's all about how really community transformed my life. I haven't lived in one, but just being close to one has had a tremendous impact on my life. So I thought I'm just going to touch on that. And so I've been involved. I come from Cupertino in California. I've been involved with Polestar for about 2 years, I think, and since the forming, almost the initial stages of the forming of the community. And I don't know, I think Panduranga said he was drawn to an intentional community. What really drew to me it was, I had no idea what an intentional community or a spiritual community really meant, but I had a neighbor who lived, and she had lived in an intentional community up in the East Coast, and she started sharing stories with me about how it really transformed her life and the life of her family. Like, it was just amazing. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is it? Like, she's like, oh, we grow things together, we eat together. I'm like, I grew up in India, it wasn't unknown, but it's like, but it's with family, it wasn't with people that you don't know, or but it was the common interest that was drawing them together, and I had no idea what that meant, and that really was of deep interest to me. So I started researching on like, what is it, do we have anything close by? And I found something really close by, and I visited it. So I wasn't able to move into it, but I started participating in their events. And every time that I went there, I could just see there was a joy, there was an upliftment. I didn't live in the community, but just going there for their events, I could feel deep friendship, and I could just go to them over the years, like I could just go to them for guidance. And it was just like a big, beautiful family that I'd never, experienced. I mean, I do have a great family, but in this sense of having such a big family, and it's like yes to everything, like I need to learn something, can somebody help me? And I just have to, like ask them, and yes, somebody just, helps me with that. And I was able to learn harmonium, with their help. And I need guidance, I'm going through something, can somebody help me? I reach out to my friends, and my dear friend, one of my dear friends is right here. So she can, it just feels like they're my sisters and my brothers. I go up, I'm going through this, can you help me with this? And I know that it's coming from their heart, and I can trust them. So I didn't really need to be there, but it just feels like it's my own. So, but I've never lived in one, that's what I'm trying to say. But, just being in their presence really uplifted me. And there was so much joy, and that actually gave me the clarity to go back into architecture. I'd given up architecture when my son was born, and when he was 13, this clarity came to me. I'm like, I should be doing something, and why don't I do something about an intentional community? Why don't I do something, because that's so passionate to me? Can I then I reached out to Panduranga and asked him, and I said, anything happening in this world, to where, like people are drawn to this kind of a thing where they're designing and building communities like this. And that's when Polestar was just beginning or had begun. It was like maybe a year or so into it. And luckily, like they gave me the opportunity to be a part of it. So I'm learning a lot from them. And there was also like, just recently I also wanted to touch that I had the opportunity to stay month long and experience being in a community. It was a program that was offered in Nevada City, closer to Nevada City. So where people, like-minded people came together. And that was the first time I would say that I've, lived in one, although I'd experienced and I knew the joy and I didn't need any convincing to be in one, but I just got to stay in it. And it was a group of 21 of us, and we meditated together, we did yoga together, shared meals together, did the activities together, everything. And there was such a deep bond. But then I also realized that the clarity has to be within us too. What is it that we are placing high? What is, as long as we keep our goal and purpose, which is to develop and to, like be our highest potential and have the right attitude, it is a very, very supporting environment is what I felt. And I was just sharing with my friend, it was such a deep experience for me to where I live in an environment which I'm not surrounded by, like-minded people or gurubais as they call in the spiritual community. But being there in that for like a 25 days program, I felt so supported. I had so much clarity, so much joy. And it felt like, you can just soar, as long as you have your attitudes right, like, I'm here to develop, I'm here for my, highest good. How can I help? How can I, and the baseline, we were discussing what should be the baseline of it. It's harmony, really, it's like, what can I give? And, like, how can I support everybody and not just what am I getting out of it? So I just, in a very deep way, I was just touched. And, we had such a deep connection in just that 25 days that we're still in touch. And that was excellent. So from that, I can speak that it, actually living in one I have no idea how it, like it should just be such an amazing experience for people who actually do live in one. And I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to be a part of this forming of Polestar. And also, I'm just so joyful that most of you who are here and who want to experience this have such a tremendous opportunity in being a part of it. And there's so much growth, there's so much potential, and I think it's just like a bright star that's coming up here. And I see all of you, we're like so bright. I was just sharing with my friend that there's so much light here. People are so happy, and like I can see the joy, and I can just feel that this is going to add more to it. Such a great value of so yeah, I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti. Who is next? Brian, you want to go?
Sure. And Kira, so.
And Kira, yes. You're going to go together?
Yeah.
Want two chairs? We'll move in there.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Great. Yeah. Look good together. Kira, you go ahead and say who you are first.
Hi, I'm Kira Hopkins. I work at the Institute for the Built Environment as a sustainability associate. I am also a student at Colorado State University. I'm going there for interior architecture and design with a minor in construction management. I've been helping out with Polestar since April.
Okay, all right. And hi, everyone, I'm Brian Dunbar, and I've taught design and construction at Colorado State for 30 years. And I grew up in architecture like JT. My father and grandfather were architects in Michigan, and And at one point they said, "Go west, young man." And I found Fort Collins, fortunately, and Colorado State University. And so I've been part of this group called the Institute for the Built Environment. We're going into our 30th year, and we get to help projects be as sustainable and healthy as possible. We get hired by project teams and school districts and building owners and sometimes developers, often in Colorado and sometimes in other states or other countries. And it's really wonderful to work on real projects and then bring those back into the classroom so that the students can learn what's going on, what's the best of innovations. And we get to hire great students like Kara to work on these real projects, which is a really nice opportunity for those top students at CSU, because it'll lead her to some great things in her career. So Michael and Daiva found us, and I don't remember exactly how they were directed to us, but at one point, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I got an email from them saying, we've been told that we should talk with you, that you might have something to offer for our development. And I'm so glad whoever it was that directed you toward us did that, because here it is in our own community and a project that we can really wrap our minds and our hearts around and help out the project. Our work at this point is to help create the design and construction guidelines so that JT and then future designers and homeowners and builders can follow these guidelines. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kara and let her say a little bit about exactly who the guidelines are for and kind of what goes into them, and then I'll say a little bit more.
Right, so these guidelines are to be used for the builders as a checklist. They can be used for homeowners for self-improvement of the homes, architects and designers working with the homeowners and or Polestar, future administrators of the community, and then shared with Fort Collins Planning and Zoning and Building Department with the facility managers for the maintenance of the site and buildings, and then act as a new model for others to follow. And then also for LEED and Energy Star homes, and then as training and education. So basically, we have broken down the guidelines into sustainable site and landscapes. That includes stuff like electronic vehicle infrastructure and parking. And then we also broke it down into landscape, which includes stuff like your soil, composting, fertilizers, and then also plant and turf selections. We also broke it down into green building, and that would include energy and lighting, materials, and then construction waste, and indoor environmental quality is another subsection we broke it down into. And then lastly, indoor water and ergonomics we play off that as well.
Great. So you can see they're real involved. How many pages do we have so far?
19.
19 pages
Yeah.
of guideline notes. Again, so homeowners could say, all right, how do we do this? What can we do? Well, the guidelines aren't meant to be limiting, they're guides, they're directions. And it's because Polestar is intentional and has some great visions about what a special community it can be. Well, when you have those visions, then you need some direction to make sure that in a comprehensive way, the whole village is really following toward that vision. And so the guidelines direct you in ways to help you consider ideas that you might not have considered otherwise. For instance, maybe you're thinking about, okay, we're going to paint now. Okay, what kind of paints? Well, we're not going to tell you the brand you have to use, and I don't know. No, we're not going to tell you the color you have to use, but let's think about using healthy paints, paints that don't off-gas something that could be harmful to you or to people visiting you or to the community in general. And so the guidelines will talk about what you should look at when you're looking at selecting paints. So that's just one example of how the guidelines can be used. The other thing that we've been talking to the group about is a new program that we're creating called Lifelong Homes and Lifelong Community. Now, the idea of lifelong sounds pretty good, right? And it certainly fits in to what you're hearing from JT and Michael. In northern Colorado, a lot of people move here to retire here, and they can't always find a home. And if they find a home that's affordable, what if one of them has a disability, or if they're planning to think about, I'd like to live in my home for as long as possible, so how can we make sure that the home is free of barriers, is very accessible for a variety of abilities. So our Lifelong Homes program allows a village or a community like Polestar to be designated as a certified lifelong community. And then within the community, there can be certified lifelong homes. We know that this will help attract people, the right kind of people, and give them confidence that I'm moving to a place that is for my life, because it's going to handle so many different aspects of it. So that's something we're still talking about, but I know that there's a really nice match between the Lifelong Communities program that we're developing and Polestar. And the last thing I want to say is, on behalf of our institute and on behalf of Colorado State University and our whole community in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado, we are so fortunate to be able to have a village like Polestar come to our community. It's going to allow people to advance learning, to advance living, to be healthy, to be a model for others on how we can live, how can we can overcome some of the issues that Michael was referring to, how we can be better for ourselves and better within community, and then better for our environment and for future generations. So Polestar isn't just for today, it's for the future. And we want it to be a model for others to duplicate and mimic. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, yeah. All right, you guys can share. Who's next?
Dan, me? Dan.
Dan's next, all right.
Just move this chair.
Oh, yeah, did you guys want
Okay, morning, everybody. Morning. Still morning, yes. I'm Dan Gregory. I didn't write notes like some of the other folks did, so this will be kind of free form. I ended up in Colorado from Massachusetts, golly, over 50 years ago. Many people have spoken about a spiritual path that they followed to get where they are, and I simply came to Colorado to ski. I need to be honest. I went to Colorado College, which is down in the Springs. I majored in geology. I wandered my way north to Denver and worked for the USGS for a while. And then ended up here in Fort Collins in 1980 to go to graduate school. And I got my master's in geomorphology, and that enabled me to then do consulting and environmental consulting, basically for my career until just a few years ago. And I was lucky enough to stay here in Fort Collins and do a variety of different housing things, starting with in 1983, I bought property up in the foothills up in Wrist Canyon. Raise your voice a little bit. Okay. I bought land up in the foothills, and I also took a course in how to build your own house. And I ended up hand building a passive solar, earth-sheltered, off-grid house that I lived in for about 5 years. And at about that time, I also met Catherine, my wife, and moved out of the foothills and then got involved with Grey Rock Commons in 1994. We were not the first part of the first group to design and build Grey Rock, but after the group had gotten large enough to actually buy the property where Grey Rock is now, we joined and were part of the design and build process. And we've essentially been there with a 2-year hiatus for since Grey Rock started in 1996, so that's 27 years. So I've already experienced community. We've enjoyed our time at Grey Rock, and are looking forward to building another house, because we will not be able to actually age in place in our current Grey Rock house. So I stopped working a few years ago and took a certification course in a building certification process called Passive House. I know a number of you have heard of Passive House, not to be confused with passive solar, which draws heat from the sun. That can be incorporated as part of Passive House. So I would characterize Passive House as the most aggressive energy efficiency standard for building. And so I'm certified in this Passive House standard. And I was kind of casting about, I wonder what I could do with this certification. I didn't need to work, but want to do something. And one of my neighbors got me in touch with Michael. So I'm thinking it's 2 years ago. I got Michael's contact information. We had a phone call that led to meetings and Zooms and being involved in the process of planning Polestar. And my goal has been to encourage Polestar to build as close to this Passive House standard as possible. And I think I'm being heard. And I'm confident that Polestar is going to do better than code. Code is way better than when I built a house, but being better than code is still would be terrific and would enable us. Ultimately, I think we should be able to build a house that's got a solar system that generates enough energy to power the house and charge an electric car and sell some electricity back to somebody else, to the neighbors, to the grid. So I'm happy to be part of Polestar, the process. We look forward to building a house on one of the single-family lots and showing how you can implement the Passive House standard. So I hope that happens, and I really hope, and I'm really happy to be we're happy to be part of Polestar seeing their vision come to fruition. So that's
Thank
it.
you, Dave.
Can we all stand and stretch for about?
Okay, seventh inning stretch.
Because this is a process of aging in place.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm a little older than when we started. I think you're
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Water. I would take some water. Bean juice. Thank you. Bean juice. Appreciate it. Oh, she gets to hold that baby. I want to hold that baby. Nice presentation. Thank you so much. And I appreciate that. You're done. I've been doing public speaking for a long time. I'm not gonna. You know that feeling. You did a great job. Thank you.
How's everybody doing over there? Looks like you're all taking a break too.
Good still?
Oh, is that right? Oh, I could probably get away with having some now.
We should all regather a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody, can we regather? This is moving upstream.
We are doing some work. And now the
Yeah, really. Okay, let's circle it up. We have, oh, we'll let Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Bill Althouse. Great to be here. Backgrounds, I guess. I've got a long history of connecting community to energy. Started in the early 70s. I was in New Mexico, and Sandia and Los Alamos were right there. So we had our gearheads. Plus, there were a lot of off-grid folks early. A number of communes got mentioned earlier. Particularly, there was Morning Star, White Buffalo, Tree Frog. Tree Frog, I fell into them in 71. That's where Ken Kesey's magic bus broke down and the hog farm. the hog farm created their commune, and fascinating place to hang out. About community, their thing is keeping the music going, right? Mm-hmm. So their only power system at the time was the battery in the pickup truck that went into Taos to get supplies. And so it would come back and they would plug 8-tracks. Remember those? Anyway, so you plug your 8-track into the battery of the car, and the party went until the battery went dead. And the pickup truck was on a hill. So once the battery was dead, you could roll downhill, start the truck, go to town and recharge the battery, and then come back to Tree Frog, and the party would start again because the 8-track player was operating. So in sense of community in that environment, when the light went off and the music stopped, this was a disaster to that environment. And so we got an idea one day of what stimulated the thinking, but we went to the junkyard and tried to upgrade our power system. Our power system was the pickup truck charges a battery. So we ripped an oversized alternator out of a wrecked ambulance and installed it with a fan belt under the hood, and then got a whole bunch of trash batteries and rigged them all up in the bed of the truck. And now the trip to Taos for groceries and back would run the stereo all weekend. This was, my first experience with how a community energy system can really change an entire community. The party never had to stop. We were going 24 hours. Well, so that was my first community energy, and I've seen a lot since then. In '76, I was running a disco during the Saturday Night Fever days in Santa Fe. And pretty interesting time. And one night this gal walks through the front door, and I'd never seen anything quite like her. And 3 weeks later, I'm standing on an island in Micronesia. There's no running water, no power, and it's a matriarchal Stone Age culture. Average annual income was 0. One of the most shocking things was people who have nothing were laughing all day. All day. Everything was funny, and they had nothing. 0 annual income, no power, no running water. What's going on? It was a matriarchal culture. We evolved under this system. If you look at our history of evolution, this patriarchy thing is brand new compared to our evolution. And evolution as a species is very slow. So we are still what was created under a matriarchal social culture. And so patriarchy is too new to have us evolve to it. So much trouble. The not laughing part is where this command and control kind of system overrides our community sense, which is what we evolved to. So anyway, I ended up being in the jungle of the Stone Age, and we went back and forth a couple times, and really interested in what was happening in the energy world. And the first distributor of the first photovoltaics in the world was a company in Santa Fe, and I was already interested. I'd gotten factory seconds from Bell Aerospace and had soldered up my own solar panel before there was such a thing. There was no such thing at the time, and yet I was living in an off-grid house outside Santa Fe. So this company got the distribution rights to the first manufacturer, and I walked into the office and, hey, you guys got this new solar stuff? Well, yeah, we just got distribution rights from Marco. And I go, hey, that's great. Is there any way I can get involved? He said, well, do you know anything about it? And I go, well, I've probably read every paper in the world, and I live in an off-grid solar house. And he's like, what? And I went, yeah. He goes, show me. So he came over to our house and saw, I actually, this is a jury rig kind of Jimmy deal, but nonetheless. So he goes, well, there's no such thing. And if, and he was previously one of the head engineers at Boeing before he retired to Santa Fe. So he pounded me with all kinds of technical stuff, and I had read every paper in the world on this topic. So he hired me. Were you willing to work on commission? And that was the beginning of a long history of working for free if I get to work on new things. A way to get the capitalist types to sponsor my mad scientist kind of stuff. So I got to melt down and blow up all kinds of inverters. They gave me anything as long as I was developing. Went back to the jungle when the tax credits, first round of tax credits in the early 80s, quit, and did a bunch of stuff there. Medevac emergency radios on remote islands across the Pacific. Before the radio, if there was an epidemic or a drought, you died. Now there's a radio call for help. So that was really one way that I was able to impact community with energy, is putting a lifeline to certain death. Infant mortality was another huge deal. Amoebic dysentery was the cause. The medicine was 5 cents, had to be refrigerated. They got a boat every 2 years. So we built solar-powered vaccine storage refrigerators that would allow this super cheap medicine to be available. Infant mortality went from almost 50% down to 10%. So again, community and energy very close together. Came back to the United States, and we weren't allowed to be producers. We didn't have energy rights as property owners or homeowners. If you produced energy, you were barred. You weren't allowed to connect to the grid. So that was a long battle at national and local levels to get access to the power grid, writing the first net metering bills, fighting investor-owned utilities for 10 years at IEEE that sets national standards, all just to get permission to operate. So the only thing you could do was off-grid, so I got into a lot of the stuff Dan is in, did help pioneer the Energy Star program. Not buying energy was the only way we could deal with corporate energy, because we weren't allowed to produce energy. Well, now here we come today. A technological revolution is exploding worldwide. Unfortunately, the powers to be that who get all the money now are really trying to downgrade it, although it's escaping. There's already 3,000 renewable energy co-ops in the EU market. Australia is becoming a classic example of rooftops are out competing central resources, not just fossil fuel, but even the centralized solar systems are no longer economical because homeowners are already meeting load. So they've made those huge utility investments almost irrelevant. Here in Fort Collins, our wholesale power supplier has a plan to spend $1 billion on obsolete technology, which are centralized resources. What's happened, it's kind of like how the internet was created. Being close to Los Alamos and Sandia, I was able to see that transition in the information age, which became .com and one of the biggest revolutions so far in human history. And very similar problem, wires and electrons. You had ARPANET, a dozen computers. They were $1 million a piece. No one would ever own their own computer, and the system was crashing because it required this central control that had to translate this computer's language to talk to that computer. Well, some smart engineers sitting around one day going, well, this is an uncontrollable situation, so what if we didn't control it? What if we tore out this central control? They gave all the computers a language, TCP, and now the computers could talk to each other, and boom, overnight the internet was born, and now there's billions of computers, including the ones in our pockets, connected to the system. The exact same thing is happening in power. We had $1 million power plants. It was a one-way system. We would never own our own. And now we're seeing all over the world, this transition is exploding to value being created at our end of the wire. And this is a value-driven thing. This is a way that we can show to the people who don't care, our capitalist folks, our local businesses, and all of that, how this transition creates profits for them. If you put solar on your roof and you wipe out your utility bill, that's net bottom line stuff. And so now I'm hoping projects like yours become the example that we can show that not only is this good for the environment, we don't need to convince the environmental groups. They're already on board that this transition is do or die. But until we convert the ones doing the damage, our biggest energy users, to change, what we do won't be enough. We've got to get them to change. So projects like yours are the platform to prove to the people who don't want to change that they better jump on the bandwagon. So I kind of see you as being able to, like the movie The Graduate, where someone whispers plastics and someone's ear as the future. So I'm hoping that your project, if we're successful with the energy alternative, becomes what we can whisper to the Chamber of Commerce: distributed resources. Right? And so that's what I'm really hoping. And Michael said something, the heaven and hell. And as an engineer, I loved it because it's kind of given me an analogy to explain what's going on at the local level and how power grid engineering works. Right now, solar's under attack nationwide. California crushed all the credits, and this is standard because there's a lot of solar, and when the sun is shining, the value of that solar is crashing nationwide, globally. That's the example of the lowest value. Lots of solar on the grid and the sun is shining. So we need to look at the whole value chain. Okay, we know when power to the grid has the lowest value. How about when it has the highest value? Let's take a little look at that. So now we have somebody with the long handle can't feed themselves. That's the old way. But now a homeowner with a solar rooftop and the neighbor with an electric vehicle now have exactly what Michael was talking about. Because in the daytime, when power prices are very low, that solar is going to go to the electric vehicle. And then at night, when the sun goes down and the value of that power spikes, the car dumps it back into the grid, the two long spoons feeding each other. And so now those synergies create values never before seen in the energy industry. And it's kind of what's driving this massive transition. And it's going to happen really fast. There's a photograph showing Fifth Avenue in New York City, 1900 on Easter Sunday. And right next to it is 1913. When you look at those two photos, you'll see in one, there's not a single internal combustion engine. All horse and wagons for the Easter Day parade. In 1913, there's not a horse and wagon left. 13 years. We're seeing that happening now in the entire energy industry, where it's, making one whole thing totally obsolete, central power, and replacing it with an entire new approach, distributed resources, virtual power plants, and on. So I'm really hoping, and CSU can be a great partner. Delighted to see IBE. I retired to Fort Collins, basically because I've been trying to make this argument that distributed resources have more value than centralized resources. And the first time I heard that coming out of a third-party neutral team of engineers was at the Energy Institute at CSU in the early 90s. I was fighting utilities at IEEE at the time. So I was so delighted to hear some people that are hard to argue with who actually supported that position. And now, all these years later, they're poised to really be able to take the lead on that here at the city level as we transition to renewable. But I'm delighted to be here. This connection between community energy gets me really excited. And I'm still matriarchal. It's about giving away. I can't be hired or paid. I turn down. People try to hire me, and I can't do that unless I'm contributing to a mission. And then I can only work for free. That's the matriarchal way. And lastly, the difference between the two systems: patriarchy, who gets more wins; matriarchy, who gives away more wins. And so that's I think this giving and sharing is definitely the key. So thanks for everybody working on this.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. Get a glass of water.
Hello, everybody, and hello, everybody. My name is Daiva, and I have been now for about 40 years friends with Ann and Michael Gornik. We raised our kids together. We have been playing, thank you so much, with the concept of conscious community in various places around the world together, exploring what that might look like and how to take it from vision and concept and theory into daily life. Before, kind of as a young person, I was living in Iowa, and I was fascinated by the thought of building homes that were less vulnerable to the environment and environmental swings. And back then it was just out of the Stone Age. We were looking at, underground homes and that type of thing, and trying to figure out how to live a little bit more harmoniously in relationship to our environment. And I remember also a part of the evolution of my own understanding about how to live in life included, wanting to live in a place where people lived. The only word I had then was deliberately, where people would deliberate, would now I use the word consciousness, but would, pick their way through life, sorting for things that would bring meaning and value and a sense of wholeness through the course of days. Days pass, and the only thing we get to harvest out of it is the fruit of the choices that we've made. And over the course of time, I determined to try, because I couldn't find a deliberate place to live, a conscious place to live, to try and go buy land and create community. And thank God that didn't happen, because I was completely unprepared. About that time, we were actively searching for property. We ran across the autobiography of a yogi, and one of Yogananda's precepts, one of the precepts that came out of that book was environment is stronger than willpower. The environment that you live in has more influence than just your own capacity to determine your future. We all understand this. We cloister ourselves in colleges to be in an environment that supports learning and understanding. Forever people have cloistered themselves in spiritual environments, monasteries and convents, to reinforce their interest in growth. We're in a new age. The interest in convents is less, but the interest in spirit is growing. And how do we create communities that foster the values that at the end of our lives or at the end of a day leave us feeling like, wow, that was worth living? We need to feed each other. Michael's metaphor is beautiful. We need to also feed the environment we're in. There's a sweet story about a farmer who had the best corn, always had the best corn year after year after year. And somebody went to him and said, how do you manage to do this? And he said, well, I make sure that all of my neighbors have access to my seed. I said, well, how does that work? He said, well, the way corn grows is the winds blow the pollen across your field. And if my neighbors have inferior corn, mine will suffer. We need to work with our environment. We need to feed not only each other, but we need to feed our environment and the creatures and the life that surrounds us. Yogananda's mentioned that, all of life is conscious. It's not just people, it's not just mammals, but all of life is filled with awareness. And all of creation is filled with awareness. And the more we start to relate to that environment and the things around us with respect, with awe, with wonder, with care, the more it gives back to us at that same level. We find ourselves in a particular moment right now. And if you look around this room, it's kind of entertaining. We are all very different. We all have really, really different backgrounds and histories. By the way, Panduranga, I think maybe you found your engineers, your people. But the smorgasbord is enormous. If you want to go back to Michael's metaphor, the things that are on the table are limitless. And if we live in relation to each other in a very small little environment, that only reinforces our preconceived notions and thoughts, we miss a whole lot of the smorgasbord. We miss a whole lot of what's there to be shared and fed from. conscious community, and especially the things that I see Michael and Anne cultivating, because I will say I've been around conscious community from my whole adult life now, and I've seen a lot of versions of it. Polestar picks it up somewhat uniquely and really powerfully, because they consciously cultivate an environment of respect and a sense of adventure, a sense of possibility, a sense of welcome that allows people to relax in that environment and start to explore and discover the kinds of things that might be possible beyond the things we already know. And so you start to see this wide variety of characters drawn into the milieu of Polestar. And you start to hear all kinds of wondrous stories, like Bill's stories or Brian's stories and Kara's stories or Dan's. I came here for skiing. You know, we all have an incredibly rich tapestry of experience and inspiration and wonder. And the Polestar container, the willingness to hold forth with the possibility that something else can be done, and something else is possible that can bring just a little bit more light, a little more joy, a little more laughter or harmony or simplicity or value. And as Polestar's mission that they've crafted, you know, it's spirit, community, lifelong learning. Lifelong learning. What's there to be gleaned that I didn't know yesterday? Because the more we know, the more we understand, the more in sympathy we are with the flow of life, the more we discover that we are connected with all of it. And then I love IBE, the Institute for the Built Environment, added one more element in the course of our exploration of what might be the guidelines. And so it's spirit, community, lifelong learning, and regeneration. Not sustainability, not how do we sustain this, but how do we regenerate it day after day, year after year, across lifetimes even. And that's the Polestar story. You know, there's always a conscious force in life that works against any aspiration. And that's not bad news. It's news, it's a fact. But it's not bad news, and if you embrace that, what happens in that contest of will, in that effort to bring forth value anyway, tremendous power is developed, and tremendous integrity and refinement of vision and refinement of understanding is curried across that exercise. And Polestar Garden started on the West Coast, but it ended up in Hawaii, and most of its life it was on the big island of Hawaii. And it faced the constant challenges of being far away from everything, so hard to really serve a large group of people. But then just on top of that, it was hammered by volcanoes and hurricanes. You know, so it was plenty of force to kind of work against to develop the character. But when that folded up, and they're yearning to continue serving that vision of what's possible in this world brought them here. They've had plenty of challenges to try and ground this, you know, and a lot of those challenges have been in the form, some of them are financial, and that's something worth just putting out to everybody. You know, pioneering isn't for the faint of heart. And pioneering, you don't pioneer because it's profitable. You pioneer because your soul demands that you put your life force, your energy, your creativity into something more valuable than what you already have and what you already need. But anytime you're growing something, it will take, you know, you have to feed it before it will feed you back. But also the city process. You know, the number of people here, these are the Pandava brothers, for those that know the Mahabharata. These are the Pandava brothers. These are the forces that are arrayed for the development. And then there's all the forces that are kind of resistant, you know, to the changes and things.
And out of that is coming an increasingly refined vision of what's possible. And I just want to celebrate, take a moment and celebrate, you know, the diversity of what's here. The diversity of characters, the diversity of vision, the different elements that are on the table that Michael and Ann have, you know, they're not creating Polestar. Polestar is a creation of everybody who shows up and gets involved. But if nobody holds the possibility, if nobody holds the container or holds the question and says, let's do this together, it never happens. So I just want to salute them. And I want to salute also your equanimity across these last 2 years of endless challenge. I think I probably would have lit fires along the way that would still be burning and not to our benefit, you know. And celebrate the fact that just a few days ago, the city has acknowledged all the effort that's gone into this vision. The man and the city zoning board wrote the code for the low density multi-use zoning that they have here in Fort Collins that happens to define the property that Polestar is landing in. And he looked at Michael at one point and he said, you know, this plan is exactly what we wrote the code for. It's exactly what we were hoping would happen on these properties, a place where, you know, people could walk to be connected and all of life could happen in one place, and you know, that agriculture and business and living and, you know, footpaths and low impact living could really evolve here. And just a few days ago, the city said that it's time for the Polestar vision to go to public hearing for review, and that will happen in November is the plan. The last step, and you're welcome to lend your prayers. I think you're invited to lend your prayers. In fact, I think they're praying you will lend your prayers. You know, most of the Front Range drains right across this property is what it feels like. There's a regional drainage that happens there, and there's an enormous amount of engineering that's going into making sure that the Polestar property and the downstream properties are all protected against the increasingly challenging environmental circumstances that we all find ourselves in. And so it's been a long and protracted exercise in engineering and understanding that the city's gone through and our consultants, our other consultants have been working with. But that's the only thing left. Everything else has been refined and polished from the support of all these people and a whole lot more, quite frankly. Another 20, 30, 40 people, 50 people have been involved in the daily development of this, but guided by this crew. So I just want to say, you know, thank you, Michael and Ann. Thank you for everybody who showed up today. Thank you for everybody who showed up online. Thank you for everybody who has got their hearts and minds bent toward a sense of possibility in this world. You know, there's an old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's where the world's going right now. You know, most people are just rattling around without a sense of vision, inspiring a sense of response to the lunacy that's happening and all the devastation that's happening environmentally and otherwise. This is a sane response. It's not an easy response, but the gift of it, day by day, moment by moment, is extraordinary. And, you know, the community that's being built, it's, you know, having a place is important. You can develop community in ways when you have place that you can't otherwise. But already the Polestar community is growing. The Polestar community, the relationships, the friendships, the understanding, the common visioning, the appreciation of all the diversity that everybody brings is developing. So let's take a moment to celebrate that. It's an equinox weekend. You know, a new cycle is starting. And God willing, you know, this will, you know, not only come into fruition as it currently is, but, you know, maybe a microgrid and things that would also help change the planet in not only socially, not only spiritually, not only in terms of the things that are allowed, but new things that aren't currently allowed that will help make a huge difference. So let's just bring our hands together. Many hands make a miracle, and thank you all for being part of this whole thing.
And how about a hand for all of our speakers today? That was awesome. All right, we ran a little over, but not too bad. And we would like to hear from some of you now. Actually, Daiva, let's switch. I'll just go back over here. And so this is your chance. It's rare to get all this expertise together in one room. And we would like to hear questions, comments, ideas, whatever anybody's got. This is a really, really great chance to explore anything you want to know about Polestar. So who's got one? Can we turn this off? Thank you. Did you have your hand up?
I didn't, but I was going to.
Okay, I felt that, yeah.
Right. Well, my name is Cassandra. Hi, folks that I don't know yet. Thank you so much for you guys speaking. This was such an inspirational gathering and meeting today. I guess just a comment. I don't know what to say exactly or how to express it, but I have known for a really long time that in my soul and in my body that the way that I have been living, and a lot of us have been living in this world so independently and estranged from one another, feels somehow very hard and wrong and counterintuitive to just being human. So there's been different iterations of me trying to create community in different ways, and even buying land and what this might look like with different people that I know in my community here in Fort Collins or wherever. And thank goodness that hasn't quite worked out either, because the spiritual component and the connection to one another, but that spiritual aspect of being connected to source, and that will is stronger than personal, or environment is stronger than will. That seems really reinforced here. So there's a lot I could say, and without rambling too much, but I just feel like I'm in the right place, and I don't know how it will work out. I'm here to contribute. I feel so grateful to get to know so many folks here, and many prayers and blessings and gratitude for the path forward. And I really feel like there's a lot of life force here, a lot of life-giving things, and maybe I'll be part of it.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, we hope so. Who else?
I have a question from the chat.
Sure.
From Inez. I would love to hear more detail about specific sustainability and efficiency measures. And also, will those things be automatically part of every building, or will they be up to each homeowner?
Brian.
Yeah, so if Stace was here, Stace would be the one to jump at that opportunity, but I'm going to channel Stace, who is because our institute has done some of the similar work over the years. So there is a mandate for all the homes that are going to be part of Polestar to be LEED certified. And so to achieve LEED certification, there's measures that have to be taken and strategies that have to be implemented so that each home in each building will perform better than code when it comes to energy, better than code when it comes to water, will be healthy, will use sustainable materials. Sustainable materials might mean it's a local material, might be recycled content, it's a healthy material, and it's something that's very durable. So all of those things will be part of every building in the village. And to achieve certification, then there's a check that goes on, and Stace's organization will be the ones who are documenting and checking to assure that all those sustainability measures are in place. And then the guidelines that Kara and I have co-authored will be part of that to reinforce that LEED is part of the program, that Energy Star is part of the both current building and future building, and renovations in the future are all part of that. So the guidelines and the mandate to achieve Energy Star and LEED certification will assure that all things are sustainable as part of the village, both the land and the buildings.
Thank you. Bill?
If I could just add and thank you and Stace, when we were talking about sustainability, by making the buildings so efficient, you're making alternative energy more and more cost effective.
Yeah.
The less energy these buildings need, the more cost effective these energy alternatives for the whole subdivision become.
Very good. It's also worth mentioning that we have a bunch of rebates we are aligning ourselves for. How much in rebates? Like $500,000 for the whole community. So everything from, there's a program the city has, and there's a bunch of different programs, and that's been Stace's job, and we would have had him speak to that, but he's lining us up so we can get those rebates, which will help make all the houses that much more affordable.
The single family homes, the question, part of the question was, are there choices within that? And yes, especially the single family. The single family, the baseline is, they say that code buildings are the worst buildings you're legally allowed to build. And so the goal of beating the code, doing better than code is worthwhile. And this development certainly exceeds that by a lot. But then you can go farther, especially if you have a single family home. Dan is a good example of that choice. He's going to go all the way from what the LEED Gold standard is up to passive house standard. And we have a little house that's kind of adjoining the community, and we've been using it's 1970s home, and we've been using it as an experimental project to see I've been building with Michael off and on around the world for about the last 40 years, and building the understanding of what makes a reasonable and sane building has evolved. And so we're using those standards, those new standards, in the remodel of this 1970s home. And we just wrapped the home in an exterior insulation. There's lots of subtleties to talk about in that, but we just did it. And right now the house, temperatures in the city are fluctuating from low 40s to mid 80s. The house goes from about 70 to 74 degrees through the course of a day, and whereas last year we had the furnace on for the cold parts of the night and stuff, we haven't even thought about turning it on at this point. And these homes that are being built have a lot of those elements in them. So, there's a lot going on, but remember, that this is, these are long-term investments in a reasonable and sane approach to living. And there's an upfront cost as well as long-term savings. And that's just a part of, part of pioneering, a part of, being on the cutting edge is just acknowledging the fact that, everybody's investing everything they have energetically, creatively, in creating something that holds enormous value environmentally, energy-wise, etc.
I would just quickly say, I think what Bill talked about with distributed energy, I'm not saying it right, but that is the game changer that's just coming back on the table. Virtually, there was someone in the city who was part of the process of reviewing what we were trying to do and was not allowing the concept of microgrid and producing our own energy to basically be part of the project. But as fate would have it, he's retiring in the next month. And Bill, you can address that more, but basically it seems like it's opening up the world to us that we have the possibility potentially to move in that direction, which would be a game changer completely.
And it's happening. United Power, one of the biggest co-ops in the state, has decided to go to a distributed system. NRail is doing a bunch of work. CSU and the Institute's doing a bunch of work. The governor just launched a clean tech hub for the state that's going to be focusing on all this. So really, looking at it nationally, we're right in the center of where this can happen, and that our utility is nonprofit really can accelerate it. And so I'm pretty excited. The gentleman who did run the city, you know, if you needed underwood typewriter, fantastic typewriter repairman. I mean, every typewriter in the city was greased up and clean and working great, so all the army of typists could do their thing. However, that's obsolete. And so now our typewriter repairman is resigning. And so now we can get someone who understands what a modem and internet looks like, which is the new power internet that we can now move to. Hopefully we'll see who they hire to take this job. And if they were to do, national right now and look for an engineer who wanted to blow this up in the engineering world of national committees, you can see the best and the brightest electrical engineers in the country right now see this move to the virtual power plant as landing on the moon to that kind of engineering thinking. And so if we actually, in our job posting, say we want a guy to take us all the way to this technology, the smartest guys in the world will apply to come here and work on this project. So that's what I'm hoping we do at the city level. So I'm advocating on the energy board as much as I can to make sure that our new guy sees the future.
Maybe it's not a guy.
Matriarchy, there we go.
That's one of the downfalls of being old.
Okay, who else has, go ahead, yes.
I have a comment and kind of a question.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that even though Dan came to Colorado to ski, he's a great skier and loves skiing. Also, both of us have, a spiritual life and spiritual appreciation, and so we really enjoy getting to know the Polestar community a little bit and to know more about Yogananda and appreciate the spirit and the ideas, philosophy of Yogananda. So it just means a lot to be able to move to a community where there's going to be that kind of culture. So we really appreciate that. It's very much. I just wanted to say it out loud.
Thank you, thank you.
And
Yeah.
also, I wanted to make a comment about Dan's mention of passive house, because I've learned about it from him, and I'm just very inspired by that idea. And I realized that those of us who will be able to build a single-family home can maybe use that in a more full way, then financially we'll be able to use it in all the other buildings. But I wonder, Dan, if you could just say a little bit more about the qualities. For instance, I'm fascinated by the use of insulation to seal the house, and I just wanted to have you give a couple more details, if you can, to support that idea.
I would describe passive house as I said earlier, an aggressive standard. It's a rigorous quantitative standard. So, for instance, it specifies a certain level of air sealing, which is measured with a blower door test. You pressurize the house. You try to blow air out or suck it in. Measure that. Remind me, Brian, what's code? I want to say it's
3 air changes per hour. Yeah.
Passive house is 0.6, so that's 5 times more aggressive.
Wow.
So that's one example. Another example is passive house requires that you're able to heat and cool the house with a certain amount of energy per square foot, which is it's a very low energy use. And I think what Polestar is envisioning is getting pretty darn close to that. But the other thing, yeah, it doesn't specify how you build a house, it just specifies that it'll be this airtight and use this amount of energy, and in this climate, that's gonna call for triple pane windows. This building was built, what, 20 years ago? Gray Rock likewise about 25 years ago, all double pane windows to meet that standard. And I think even some of what we're talking about here for the standards for Polestar, it's going to look at triple pane windows, so much higher quality windows, and very specific ventilation is bringing in fresh air, getting out the stale air of the house. So the indoor air quality is very high. So one thing we've experienced here in Fort Collins more than once in our time here is smoky skies from wildfires. And what Passive House allowed you to do with that kind of building is still have good indoor air quality even though it's pretty crappy outside.
And also, it's interesting to note that during the Marshall Fire, the one house that still stood because it didn't catch fire was a Passive House.
It's not actually certified Passive House, but close. But,
Wow.
you know, well built, tight. I don't know if anybody heard about that, but there's a house that did have everything around it burned down.
Wow. Wow. Okay, who else? Yes.
So I think the thoughts that come up for me is so the world is kind of cluing into the fact that attention equals value, and so there's a tremendous amount of expertise and value that's being put into this. As a young family, we're concerned about being priced out, and so we're curious about the financial considerations, especially for a younger generation who doesn't have the capital or the salary to really help with a community who has all this attention. So curious if anyone could speak to that.
Can you
Yeah.
repeat the question? So
Yeah, that's probably me. Yeah, so the question was basically about the attainability and the accessibility financially of these, and it's been on my mind the entire time. And when we started this process, we really used the word affordability, but that sort of got beat out of us in the first few months of hiking our way up this very difficult and arduous path of city entitlements. And so we are more using the word attainability now, so that's really what we're working on. And it is our desire that we have as much affordable and attainable housing in Polestar as possible. And the designs have been created with that in mind. So we have compact units and we have very efficient units, and they aren't extravagant architecturally or anything like that. We tried to keep them simple and buildable and as affordable as they can be. That said, our energy requirements and we can't help ourselves but to build them as well as we know how to build them. And so we have to contend with that, which certainly there's costs involved in that. The good news on that is the affordability over time plays out, you know, so you have that going for it, you know. We are an educational nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We have been known to get donations on a regular basis because people are inspired by what we're doing. And it is the intention of the nonprofit to own a certain amount of housing. I just let somebody in the Zoom. I hope I didn't do wrong. I don't want to get Zoom bombed in there. Yeah. The intention of the nonprofit is to have a certain stake in some of the housing, specifically so we can have some in that affordable category. So if things go well, that could be a smaller number or a larger number, so that we have that going for us. We will also have rentals here, because some of the and we hope to keep some of those in the affordable category. So everything's on the table. I will add to that this Prop 123. I don't know if people know about that, but the state of Colorado is throwing like $300 million per year at affordable housing. And we have a consultant who knows about that, and we're exploring all that. It's very complicated, as you can imagine. And but we are on a path of seeing how we could align that with some of our projects. So suffice it to say, we hear and share your concern and are doing everything we know to do, and to make sure we can have a diverse community. You know, it's very, very important to us. So thanks for bringing that up.
May I add to that just a little bit?
Sure, please.
And this is born of experience. Michael is a builder and has been a builder his entire adult life. He's also a little bit crazy. And you can quote me on that. He'll prove himself out. His commitment to making this pattern of life available is pretty far out there. You know, he's really dedicated to making this not be a financially driven community or project. And one of the tools that he's used across the 40 years I've known him to build community is to actually get people involved in building community, you know, and leveraging your youth, your strength, your vitality to actually help create the buildings you're going to be living in. And this, you know, sweat equity is one of the most powerful tools that young people have. So I think that conversation is well worth pursuing, and that's kind of to get out there in the ether too.
No, and we have talked about, I think this Polestar Village is ripe for this, an owner-builder co-op, you know, people who are really reaching to get in there, band together, and we have plenty of builders and experts here, and we could make, you know, that kind of thing really, really efficient, actually.
Well, it diversifies skill. I mean, it does everything.
Yeah, and then people
learn
learn skills. Yeah, it's a learning opportunity. There's so much richness in having us do a lot of the work. You know, it's what we've done all our lives, and we still love it, even though it's harder to do than it used to be. But we still love it. Yeah. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's very interesting to hear everybody's perspective and different backgrounds. I'd like to say I came here for the skiing. I'm a terrible skier, but it sounds so cool to say that. But I actually followed my son here, who's a junior at CSU, and a big skier. So indirectly, I came here for the skiing. And then 6 months ago, actually 6 months ago today, I brought my 93-year-old mother here in Florida. So she came more directly for the skiing too. So part of my draw, she was in an assisted living facility in Florida. So I've been in this like senior, like trying to figure out how to help her age and how to help her go through this, like, you know, final transition in her life. And it's been really challenging. My good God. And doing it yourself. Yeah. So I'm like, I didn't really want to talk because it's very upsetting. She's on her third assisted living place in 6 months, and she's gonna have to live there. And she has planned. It's not for lack of planning. She has a great long-term care policy, so she's really unhappy because there's no connection. There's no, you're in these assisted living facilities. She's gone. So in Florida, she was in this big facility. So I thought, well, I have to get her out there because because the staff to patient ratio is like, there's one nurse for 30 people. And it was, you know, it's a very good one with all the amenities. So I'm like, I'm gonna bring her from Florida, and I'm gonna bring her to Colorado, and I'm gonna put her in a small place, you know, where there's one caretaker to 5 people. But she's in, so I'm trying to like figure out like what is going on. She's got good care, good medication management, activities, but she's not, it's all other people. She's 93, she doesn't, some of you have met her, she doesn't have dementia, she's very animated. She's, you know, from London, grew up during World War II in London. She writes poetry, but she's not with me and my son. You know, she's not in community, she's not with us. She's with a bunch of strangers. And
So you're suggesting that what we need to do is hurry up?
Because she has like so much, she's angry and she's disappointed. This is her end of lifetime, and she's not with the people she loves. And I can't move her into my house. I have stairs. She's, some of you, you know, she's not mobile. She's very good. She's sharp mentally, but she's not very mobile.
Well, this team has gone way, way, way down the road to try and make housing that serves exactly what you're talking about.
So one of my questions, like, thank you, Greg. I see that, and I see this, what we need, like, our lives are so fragmented, you know, the American lifestyle, our society is so fragmented. And like, kids go away to college, I follow my son to college, because I'm like, I'm widowed, I'm like, he's the only one I have, you know, and then I brought my mom here. But like, I followed him to college. I'm really glad I did, because Fort Collins is an amazing town. It's great. I've made more friends here in 2 years than 30 years in New England. So it's a really vibrant, wonderful place. I love the outdoors. I'm not good at it, skiing or hiking or anything outdoors, but I'm drawn to it. And then I decided I'm going to bring my mom here, and so. And she's unhappy for good reasons, you know, because nobody should go through their final stages of life in these assisted living places. Even if you have all the amenities and you need the young people. And I saw when I brought her to one event at Polestar, and like I saw the intergenerational thing, and that's what everybody needs. We need not to isolate our elders in these assisted living. And Fort Collins, by the way, this is like the capital of assisted living places and nursing homes I've ever seen. There's like one on every block. And they're just, if you've been in them, they're really depressing. Even the ones that are, you know, and she has a great long-term care policy. But so she's been in 4 now, and I'm looking for the 5th. Maybe Polestar. So actually, one of my really important questions is, your senior building, whatever it's going to be, your wellness building, can you make it so like, even if I had like a ground floor bedroom for my mother, I couldn't move her in with me because I can't do her med management. Can you make it so it qualifies for, you know, to be an assisted living, to be a nursing home, so that we could have, you know, care to come in? And even my mom, she's got this great policy, it's lifetime. You can't even buy these policies anymore. But even if you're well-heeled and you have, people are living into the 90s, hundreds of them. If you eventually can go through all your resources, because these places are $10,000, $12,000 a month. Like, can you make your building so it's certified to take Medicaid? So you can have people come in. Is there any thought given to that?
Yeah, no, we have been talking about that, and that is, I don't know all the details of that, but one thing we have learned is that the efficiency of taking care of elders, if they're in a compact area, is way better. You know, when elders are spread everywhere, and of course all the things that we're doing with the design to make elder living more functional are built into the plan. But to answer your question, I don't specifically know how that works and what the eligibility requirements are, but I'm glad you brought it up, because we should look into it. Part of our hope is that people could just live, you know, to a great extent right where they're living, and with you can bring the help in, and if there's, you know, 6 people at that stage of life, then it's super efficient. So that's a real important thing we learned when we started studying, you know, how that part of life would go. for people. Brian, go ahead, yeah.
Qualifications to bring that help in.
Right.
So
Did you wanna
just
say
please give
something
some
first?
thought to that.
No, go ahead.
So just on Friday, I had the opportunity to present our Lifelong Homes program that I mentioned to a woman who has been a CEO of assisted living places in Northern Colorado, and she's recognized for the great work that she's done. She made a statement to me that I was really surprised about. She said, "I don't think assisted living places will exist in 10 years."
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow.
She said they're becoming unaffordable and we can't hire people. We have empty beds because we can't staff the places. Youth don't want to work in a place like that. It's not easy. So she said, what you're doing with this idea of lifelong homes is really what we need. We
Wow.
need people to learn to age successfully in place, in community. And so I think, and I mentioned to her Polestar, she said, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That we really need to care for each other, because when we isolate people, they go like this, and that's not a way to finish up. So I just wanted to mention that here's someone who has been in this world all her life. She said, I would not put my mother in a place like this because we can't staff them. There's not enough care. What I would put my mother in is a place that is more about community. So then, your question really is, how do we make sure that these places are places that we can successfully age in place? So that's both about the built environment, the housing, as well as the community and the social aspects of it.
One of the things, and I just want to put this out generally, is there's a strong streak in America of independence, and you know, people say, well, I'll move to community when I need it. But that's not how it works. You know, what makes community work is the investment in relationships across time, so that when you have need, there's already huge deposits in the community relational bank that pays out in friendship support and connection. So it's a little hard to have that conversation about a community that isn't built yet. But you know, if there's interest in Polestar, the best way to get involved in Polestar is to move in, you know, to get involved now, help build the community, make that your social network, your foundational base. It's the whole reason for it being designed the way it is, so that you have a social network that can last throughout your life. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, we're at
I'll just make a quick comment.
past noon, yeah.
I've seen the Envisoning show on Netflix, and I think most people know this, but in those communities where they talk about these areas where they're coming from all more density of folks that are reaching 100 years old, dementia is almost non-existent. Almost none of these elders are on meds, and I would imagine that filters down to everybody that's in the community as far as depression and health and wellness. So it's just part, you know, that's a deposit level where we need as much of that care.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we are afternoon, and we have to be out of here at 1 and cleaned up. So, but we'd like to do a song for you guys. But if there's one more question that's really pressing and not too long, if somebody, okay, Laura, you had your hand
An
up.
appreciation to everyone, a request for links, resources to read about, like, whatever
Lifelong
you're
homes, lifelong homes. Yeah, that thing, yeah.
I was on Zoom last week, and I know you gave us that video, which I haven't been able to watch yet, but any like beginner lay people about this distributive something or other.
B2G. CarbonEconomySeries.org is our nonprofit. I'm learning internet, but I'm starting to post a whole bunch of background, what's going on around the world. So links to technology, links to examples. Over the next couple of weeks, it'll be in a lot better.
And say that again, what is it, Bill?
CarbonEconomySeries.org.
Can you put that in the chat? Thank you, Vina. Let's do that after our song. No, all right, thank you, Laura. That was good and short. And we're right here. We're going to do a little chant. We'll teach you guys a chant.
And anybody who'd like to help stay and help clean up would be most
Well,
welcome.
we can stay for a while and have some snacks, and that way, you know, if there was a question you still had pressing, you can find the person who might answer it best. So, life's too short to not have music. So, this is a fun chant we like to sing. Very simple. It's in Italian. Gioia, gioia, gioia. Sempre nuove gioia. Did I say that right? Nuova. Thank you. That's right. So gioia, gioia, gioia. Sempre nuova gioia. And it just means joy, joy, ever new joy. So to the yogi, this is the primary quality of spirit. Is joy. You know, let's do it real quick. Okay. Thank you all for being here today. It's really, really great to share with everyone and all our presenters and everyone. All right. Treats, snacks, anything else? And we can be here till 1 at least, I think. I think we're allowed to go over. Help yourself. Thanks.